Right, thank you, Michael, and thank you, Amy. That was really interesting. Now we'll move to Scandinavia. Good day, everyone. As healthcare architects, when we design, we always begin and end with function. We design our buildings according to the brief. We optimize it in close collaboration with the hospital staff. And then on all of a sudden, what has happened in the current pandemic is that our hospitals are used for something completely different than what they were designed for. So how have the hospitals managed this? And how well have the existing buildings complied to this? And finally, of course, the question is, what can we learn for future designs? Because with SARS, Ebola, and now COVID, there is a general acknowledgement that we must prepare that this situation will happen again. So this is what I'm going to spend the next 15 minutes on, with 2 examples from Danish COVID hospitals and 1 example of how we in our team may rethink our current hospital design. Right. My name is Brigitte Gade Ernst. I'm a partner in our team Architects and responsible for our Danish healthcare buildings. And as you can see, we design healthcare buildings in any scale, from new hospitals as the new Children's Hospital in Copenhagen to life science buildings and healthcare centers. We are Scandinavian, and we have a Scandinavian approach both in our architecture and in the way that we design patient-related design. Right, so first some background information. In the international press, I've read about the Scandinavian response to COVID-19. And I believe there are 2 reasons that the COVID situation is fairly manageable in Denmark. First, our hospitals are national. They're managed by the regions, but it's one system with a large degree of knowledge sharing, which has been useful in this crisis. Secondly, as you probably know, Denmark is a welfare state. That basically means that we accept quite high taxes in order to secure education, law and order, pensions, and indeed healthcare for everyone. So you can say we have a contract with the government that we pay, and in return they take care of the weak in society. That again means that when the Danes have shown this red and green COVID curve, and I explained the importance to avoid the red surge, to keep distance, to work from home, to wash our hands, we do this by and large because it's part of the aspect of taking care of the weak. Also, if we fall ourselves, we are sure of help. So there are mainly 2 important aspects that we have learned from this pandemic, which is surge and separation. And these are the issues that I will talk about here. The figure on the right, you see in Denmark we had, in March when it was worst, we had 550 COVID patients only. And today it's 124 at hospital, only 15 in the ICU cares. We have a population of 5.8 million people, so it's fairly manageable, but still we take care. Right. Some of the first to accept COVID patients in Denmark were, of course, the National Hospital, Rigshospitalet in Copenhagen. Here, a new north wing. This is the building at the bottom right with the zigzag motif. It should have been inaugurated, but it was delayed. So the hospital thus had a whole new empty building that could turn into a COVID hospital. So here the topic of separation was solved quite easily. And this is not our building, by the way, it's designed by 3XN and Link Architects. Regarding the surge, this has not yet been an issue in Denmark. We were warned by what happened in Italy, and we have prepared accordingly. So Rigshospitalet and other hospitals quite quickly cancelled a number of elective patients, and also more nurses were retrained to handle intensive care patients. So interestingly, none of the Danish hospitals were fit to deal with testing facilities. So in order to secure separation, testing tents were set up all around the country and also here at Rigshospitalet. So inside the new North Wing, the specialist in charge, Dr. Jan Bunde, initially thought that the brand new 200 single bedrooms were perfect for the job. Instead, he and his team found out that they were too short of staff to maintain surveillance in the many rooms, and instead they used the operation theatres and the adjoining pre- and post-op and gathered, as you see here, 10 beds in one room. So you have there are 3 rooms with 10 beds on each floor. In the nearby region of Zealand, this building was the main hospital for COVID patients, and this is one of our buildings. It was designed as a mother-child clinic. And as you can see, this is also a building on its own, so connected only with corridors to the main hospital, top left, and the acute care clinic, top right. We have the wards and the quadrangle, and the delivery rooms, etc., in the L-shaped building to the right, directly connected to the acute care. And this is what it looks like today. The tents here are not only used for testing, but they're also used for triage, for observation. And as you can see, the tent construction continues along the right side of the building. So this is the whole tentscape with a whole new organization. The tent ends at the entrance here at the red arrow. This is actually just a back door used for deliveries, and now it's the COVID-19 entrance. Directly to the right of this door is an elevator, and this is now used for COVID patients for separated flow. So this small back door allows a whole new separated flow to this hospital. You have this blue COVID-free zone. In effect, you have a tiny part of the footprint of the building, which is this COVID zone here illustrated in red. And the top floor then is now a dedicated COVID floor. In this region, there's not been such shortages of staff. Reallocation has sufficed. And here the single bedrooms, which is normally for mothers and the newborns, are now used for COVID patients. The single bedrooms have an advantage for the patient, as some of the equipment used for allocating oxygen, etc., actually make quite a lot of noise. So imagine lying there feeling very sick, and it isn't helpful at all to have to listen to a machine that supports your neighbor breathing. You could be next. So this is a very stressful situation that's avoided with a single bedroom. So what do we take with us to the next pandemic? Will we build with redundancy to handle a future surge? I think in Denmark that's highly unlikely. Square meters are expensive, and the trend is to optimize and make hospitals as compact as possible. I believe in flexibility, and we have, as we've seen in this previous example in Zealand, where we design more ICUs in the future, possibly. Will we have a focus on separation of flows? Definitely. And this is something that we can learn from COVID, and where we can help the hospitals be prepared. So I'll end my talk by showing you a project that we are currently working on for the hospital of Nordmøre and Romsdal, in this beautiful site in Norway. It's a new local acute care hospital. The low building that you see on the left is the psychiatry, and then to the right is the somatic hospital, and with the acute care building on the far right. And here's an early rendering of the main entrance. And on the plan drawing, you see this main entrance top left. It looks like it's in the edge of the building, but the psychiatry is not shown here on this plan, so it's actually in the middle. So if you turn left, you're in the somatic wards, and if you turn right, you're at the psychiatry. And then to the far right in this, you see the pink of the drawings here is the acute care, or the A&E. And in the middle, you have this corridor connecting the two wings. Now this is the corridor. Notice the door. It's designed to gain access to common outdoor spaces. It's also perfect for a future pandemic. The door is placed, as you can see, in close proximity to an elevator that can be dedicated to the purpose when needed. So in this way, we can easily dedicate a whole wing to a new pandemic. You see the pandemic elevator, the elevators going to the other floors, and then of course the acute care elevator. Down at the pink area, the acute care, we are contemplating a new entrance, an extra entrance for triage. Shown here to the right, you have the existing or planned entrances with the blue arrows on top of the plan. But a new pandemic entrance could be useful in a future pandemic. And then a seemingly smaller thing, but still you have to embed it in the design from the start. We are currently adding more sinks to our design. This is hand washing is preferred to the highly flammable hand disinfection. And this is quite interesting because this is sort of an old school thing. Years ago, we designed more sinks, and now they are sort of entering back into our projects, or at least into this one. COVID behind the scenes. The laboratory staff of this hospital were concerned that working with highly contagious substances, they would unintentionally risk infecting colleagues. Therefore, our initial big open lab space to the left has now been remodeled into 2 separate units and a third room for equipment. So for the future, they can use one laboratory for the pandemic laboratory. And also smaller separated waiting areas are introduced instead of one large common area. As you can see, there's a second waiting area in the back in the rendering. Can we do something extra here? Perhaps it's in the process. So on the larger scale and the smaller detail, if we ask the right questions and use the experiences of the staff from the current pandemic, we architects do have the skills and the tools to help prepare for the next pandemic. Thank you.
Thank you, Brigitte. I have actually a question of my own. You show most of the project that has been transformed in your presentation on newly built. Do you think newer buildings are easier to adapt than the old one? Or have you also seen examples of very old buildings being adapted in Denmark?
At the current in the current pandemic, at Roskilde, they used the old buildings. They came actually prior to the one I showed in Slagelse in Zealand. They found out, they use what they have and what they can do within the premises. And in this older hospital from I think from the 70s, they had 2-bedroom wards, and they found out that this was quite all right for them, because the rooms were large enough to hold a distance from the patients. And what they choose to do was they actually changed within the space within this room. So in the 2-bedroom ward, they could, if they moved close to the door, they could take off all their equipment and PPE, put it in a bag, and then go outside in the corridor. And like that, they had sort of the red room, the contagious room, and the clean corridor. So we don't work with these orange zones as Amy showed us earlier. That of course has means that they change clothes quite often, and they had to wash their glasses, because otherwise they didn't have enough glasses. And so what I talked with the doctor there, could we do something to make sort of a larger zone, so they could use part of the corridor as well, so they don't have to change all the time, and then sort of make this into a COVID zone. So, but it's really interesting is how they use the buildings.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, thank you for your answer. I think we have to go to the next speaker. Thank you.
Thank you.